Thank you for listening to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast, available on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher. Also, please follow Matt's Movie Reviews on Facebook, YouTube, Parler, and Instagram. And of course, be sure to visit www.mattsmoviereviews.net for the latest reviews, top 10 lists, and more. Now, on to the show.
Hello, my name is Audrey, and this is my husband, Henry. We don't want to hurt you or your baby. We feel this would be the best way for you to go missing.
Dr. Walsh, morning. Here to clean your drive.
No, everything's okay.
Thank you so much for the book.
Hail Satan. Hail Satan. Hail Satan. Hail Satan.
So you've seen some ghosts, huh?
No one has more time than a grieving family. We can do this. He's coming back to us.
Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 314. Out now on Shudder is Anything for Jackson, an anti-Nativity horror movie that stars Sheila McCarthy and Julian Richards as grieving grandparents that do a deal with the devil to bring back their beloved grandson Jackson through a reverse exorcism ritual involving a heavily pregnant woman played by Konstantina Mantalos. One of the best horror movies of 2020. Anything for Jackson boasts great performances, terrific pacing, and some of the best scares this or any other year. Joining me now to talk about Anything for Jackson is the film's director, Justin G. Dyck, and writer Keith Cooper. Boys, I thank you very much for joining me today on the podcast.
Well, thanks so much for having us. It's a pleasure.
So, Justin, I want to begin with you because your career is really fascinating to me. So you have this kind of long, impressive list of the Christmas movies to your name. But I read that initially your initial aspiration as a filmmaker was to do horror movies. So how did it happen that you just found yourself working on these kind of Christmas movies, holiday-themed movies? And when did you know it was time to kind of revert back to that initial passion of yours and get back into the world of horror?
Well, the best advice I ever received about filmmaking was fake it till you make it. So I just kept telling people I was a director. And then one day they hired me to do so. So I was working as a cinematographer and editor. I was directing, music videos and anything I could get my hands on to try to build up a resume. And working with a wonderful company making as a cinematographer. And I said, hey, you guys have a lot going on. Could you find financing for a small independent horror film? So the producer said, yeah, let me look into that. So she went off to MITCOM or one of the many shows, came back and said, all right, good news. I found financing for a movie, but it's not a horror movie. It's this movie about a kid who plays soccer with a monkey. And I said, oh, well, that's an interesting option. But hey, I haven't made a movie yet, so let's go with that. So yeah, that was my first feature, and it did well enough for within that market. So that led to another one, which led to another one, and eventually into the Christmas movie space. And it sort of just became. We never really gave up pursuing a horror film. But it just became a day job, and a wonderful day job. I was working with actors, working with crews, getting better every single day. I'm directing on set. It's hard to get an indie horror film made, but it's, if you can make a Christmas movie that has a, slightly predictable plot and people falling in love, then there's a lot of people going to watch that. So, I got to continue making those and getting better while Keith and I, came up with new ideas, went to new places to pitch, and eventually find the money to make our first horror film.
Keith, you've worked with Justin a number of times previously, especially on these Christmas movies. Did you know of his initial aspirations in regards to doing a horror movie? Is that something that you yourself also wanted to do? Or is it something kind of like you went along for the ride with Justin here and you're like, let's see where this horror movie kind of thing can take us?
No, it was definitely very calculated. Justin, as Justin said, we met when we were about 7 or 8 years ago. And this was the goal right from the beginning was, I grew up loving horror movies. And Justin obviously had a fair number of horrors that he'd loved. And so we'd gone back and forth a bunch of times, and this was always the goal. But as Justin said, sometimes you get other offers, and that's what's on the table, especially in Canada. It's a different experience, pitching horror movies and things. So funny enough, we really just, we also didn't really have very much experience going out and pitching things. We were lucky enough to find, as Justin said, a great partner here that just kind of was fortunate enough to give us a lot of great work and let us get good at our craft. But yes, no, horror was always the goal. And it just took a little while for us to kind of break out on our own and make our first one.
In my opinion, not to say that anything for Jackson is a exorcism movie in a traditional sense or in any way, but since Paranormal Activity, I think that type of film has replaced the slasher as kind of like the best kind of movie for a lot of kind of debuting indie filmmakers who kind of put their toe into the horror genre, because that film showed that you can have a small budget and you can do a lot of cool things with it. But this idea of a reverse exorcism movie, how did you come up with this concept? Like, Justin, is this something that you had in mind for quite a while? Were you like, what, people haven't done this in the genre yet? Because I myself haven't really heard the term before until I heard about your film.
Yeah, it's sort of something Keith and I keep in our heads when coming up with ideas for new films. Is we always want to subvert expectations. So we were in a pitch meeting trying to get another project off the ground. And they said, "Oh, this is cool. Do you have anything in the sort of the paranormal space?" And of course, we said yes. We have several of those. So we got back to the car and decided, all right, we have an hour and 20-minute car ride to come up with a bunch of paranormal films. So we went through and we started going through all the subgenres and said, okay, a ghost exorcism movie. How do we turn that on its head? What's the opposite of an exorcism? And we just very plainly said, well, that's a reverse exorcism. And that was, I think, the seed that became all of this. And I think it was within the next 12 months that idea became a script, got financed, and we rolled cameras.
What's something that really interesting to me is that the main characters in the film, Audrey and Henry, they are Satanists. And the whole concept of what a Satanist is has really changed over the decades. I mean, you go on from those kind of like 50s and 60s movies and the kind of thing that like Peter Fonda did back in those days, and to the 80s of Satanic Panic. And now the term Satanist kind of represents this kind of progressive activism that's happening out there, this kind of weird thing that's going on with the term there. And one thing I wrote in my movie in regards to review in regards to your movie is that you guys brought the fear back into Satan. And what I was really drew me into that kind of world of what you guys did in this film was a whole concept about ritual and worship. Keith, when it came to creating this sort of anti-religion in your movie, did you draw in any type of real concepts in regards to real Satanism in the real world? Is there anything in regards to demonology or any of that stuff that you picked on to put into your movie? Or did a lot of the kind of like names of demons and rituals and such, is that something that you guys made up for this movie?
No. I tried to do, I did as much research as I could. Obviously, as Justin said, it was a short period of time, but I didn't want to offend anybody. I mean, they're not my beliefs. But it's the same thing. If I was making a movie about Christians, I would do my research for Christians. So I wasn't trying to be offensive. But something that Justin and I talked about a lot, I think this was Justin's idea early on that I really liked, was, every religion sort of has the same version of everything, right? Whether it's Zeus or God or, whatever, like they just have different names for them. So that was a really big thing for us, was to kind of create this book where every version of humanity has seen these creatures or these demons or whatever these entities that we have. And so we just went with whatever name we felt like that period of the book would have called it. So, at the end, I know we're probably trying to go as spoiler free as we can here, but the names of the demons are definitely names that we found that I found in my research for sure.
Justin, something that's really cool about the film is that you humanize the lead actors, even though they are doing very bad things. There is a reason why they're dealing with grief, and I think grief is really emotional, that for some people could be really kind of palpable, they can really kind of latch onto. How important is it to kind of bring the humanity in your monsters that you have in your film?
Well, it was, especially because the story was told from their perspective, it was critically important. If I think, the original concept was, let's tell the story from Becker's perspective, the victim here. And then I think it would have been, more predictable to say, now these two are monsters. The only time we see them is when they, unlock the door and sneak into the room to do something horrible. Mm-hmm. But even that, again, going back to our the original spot, the idea came from, is you have to subvert these expectations. So really, anytime we'd come up with an idea, if that idea came fast enough, we said, well, that's because it's expected. What's next? What else? So yeah, when they became the leads, it's critically important to humanize them. And I don't think it was overly difficult given the subject matter. It's, as you say, it is about grief. And there's little people won't do when dealing with grief. And if you tell somebody, hey, you can get back a lost loved one, they're going to say, what's it going to cost me? And for some people, there's no cost that's too high.
Keith, when it comes to finding the actors for the roles of Audrey and Henry, you guys really hit it out of the park in casting Shirley McCarthy and Julian Richings. Did you know of these actors beforehand? Was there an extensive audition process in trying to find them? How did you come across casting these characters with these particular actors? Because they were just, like I said, terrific in the roles.
Yeah, they really were. And honestly, this was a no-brainer. We got really lucky when I was I think I was only about a quarter of the way through. Justin had watched this great movie called Cardinals with Sheila McCarthy. And he was like, what about this for Audrey? He's like, can we write with this in mind? I've got a friend of a friend who we might be able to get in touch with her. Through them. And I said, okay, so let's do that. And then I'd known Julian's work forever. And same thing, I'd known friends of friends who knew him. So I said, okay, well, we'll aim for those two. And then if we get lesser versions of that, then that'll still, at least that was our benchmark. So I wrote it for Sheila and for Julian in mind. And then we had a great casting director, Rebecca LaMarche, who just helped out with the rest. She found Constantina, she found Josh. And luckily with Justin's background, making all those Christmas movies, he'd already had great relationships with Caitlin and Lynette, Scott and Claire, so it was very easy. I say it's very easy because we had Rebecca. So, but she's just very good at her job.
One of my favorite characters in the film is that of Ian. And
yes,
what's really cool about that character is that if you're dealing with a religion, even a religion of beliefs like Satanist beliefs, you have your fanatics within that religion. And to me, the Ian character really kind of presents the fanaticism of any religion, especially in regards to this one. Played by Josh Credis, how did he... It's just so interesting how he approached that character. It's kind of like really kind of quiet, kind of introverted, and then, not to give away too many spoilers, of course, kind of comes out of his shell near the end of the film. Number one, casting Josh Credis in that film, Justin, and number two, creating that character. Was the initial thought you had to kind of bring a balance to the kind of belief system, belief structure, type of believers in this world? Because while Audrey and Henry are really dabbling into something supernatural, almost kind of seems like they got one toe in the deep end and one toe kind of out, where Ian is all the way immersed in this religion.
Yeah, well, I think I broke my own rule when I first started reading the script, and I pictured Ian as a more of a stereotype. I thought he had to be tall, big, daunting, especially, he should be able to overpower Henry easily and be an intimidating force. So I was looking for your, big, broad-shouldered guy with a ponytail.
Almost like someone from like a Black Metal video or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then when we saw Josh didn't even read for that part originally. He read for 2 other roles, and we just fell in love with him as an actor because we saw his range in those 2 other auditions, and we said, what would it look like for this guy to be Ian? And I said, oh my gosh, that's the right way to go, because you're expecting a guy from a death metal band. And this guy, not that Josh couldn't be in one, but he was just far more unique. And we just asked him, would you be interested? And what he brought to that role took me by surprise, which is why film was such a collaborative medium. I'm not a painter. I can't draw. So, creating art on my own is not one of my strong suits, but getting to work with geniuses like Josh is just such a fun way to create. So yeah, that's where he came from. And he really brought so much to that character that I had blindly not seen from the beginning. And then, in terms of, sorry, what was the second half of your question? Just about his connection with the religion?
Well, it's really interesting in that his character represents a more fanatical part of the religion, where it seems like Aubrey and Henry had kind of like one toe in, one toe out. The character of Ian was really immersed in the deep end, and how important was it to show that kind of balanced structure within that religion, especially that group, because it's like a group that kind of converges in the local library and such. And there's actually one pretty good line where near the end of the film, one of the members of the group actually calls up Henry, and she's like, "Look, I don't even believe in this stuff. I just came along to meetings." Where Ian is like fully into it. How important was it to show the fanatical side of this religion in regards to having a balanced structure and how this religion kind of plays out in your movie?
Yeah, it was. I think it comes down to realism. I think in any church you can find those people. You can find, you can find the kid who's there because his parents dragged him along, and you can find the people who, who found this religion on their own accord and jumped in with both feet. So Ian is that. He's a bit of a social reject, and he found something. He found a way to define himself. In this Satanism. So that's why he's there. Henry and Audrey are there through desperation. They discover, just seeking out ways to get their grandson back. Someone must have told them about this church, or maybe they found it online. And I thought, well, these people might know something. And then, what was Caitlin's name, Keith? Yolanda. Yolanda was... Yeah, she's there. I think she probably dabbles. She's probably been, she was Wiccan for a few years, and now she's into Satanism. And I think she just enjoys the attention. And so, it was sort of, they represent just how broad any community is. It's all made up of very different people, and they all come at it from different angles. So I think it was very important to show all that.
So I said in my introduction that I believe that this film is one of the best horror movies of the year, and I think it has some of the scariest scenes I've seen all year as well. And I think a big part of that is the variety of kind of the ghosts and creatures that are in the film. Keith, how did you and Justin kind of come up with these kind of monsters? And especially in regards to the look of them, is this stuff that's fleshed out on the page, or do you also have a visual accompaniment with it? Is there storyboards, anything like that? Or is it all on the page and all kind of like adding textures to it on set with different costumes and props and etc.?
Yeah, it was a bit of everything. It was so originally I designed the ghosts. I wanted to kind of go a different way, so I looked into some dream analysis. And so each ghost kind of represents a different fear or meaning of dreams. I'm not sure how much spoilers we're trying to do, but the first ghost that appears to Henry, in that if you look at dream analysis, it's about losing control, and that's sort of the moment that Henry has lost control. So it was important for that, and same thing with Audrey. The first one that appears to her is about her grief and her loss, and things just getting too big for her. So hard to try and describe these things. So that was really important. So I think we'd known exactly what we were hoping for. And then luckily we had an incredible makeup special effects artist, Carly Morse, who just, as Justin says, it's collaborative. So you come with a great idea and you're lucky when somebody is as talented as Carly, who can just make it better. So for as fleshed out as we thought they were, Carly just comes in and adds, that extra 100%. That's just incredible and just makes it so much better than you could even see.
Justin, one of the creatures or ghosts in the film that everyone is talking about is the suffocating ghost. And, I have to admit, when I was watching this film and that hit the screen, I didn't know where it was going to go. I did not know what to expect. I don't really remember seeing anything quite like that. And it scared the shit out of me, just to be quite blunt here. How did you guys come up with the concept of the suffocating ghost, and how much was it that the actor Troy James, and for a lot of people who don't know Troy James, he's actually a contortionist, really made a name for himself. I think it was like a couple of years ago on America's Got Talent. How did what he brought to the table in regards to his skill set really did it at all change the way you were approaching this ghost? Was it always the intent of having to be this kind of like Wrigley, kind of Riley, on all fours kind of creature that he was? Or is that something that, like, when you cast Troy James and you're like, I think we could do something really cool with his skill set here?
Yeah, the original script, I believe, had him tied up under the bed.
Yeah, that's right.
So he wriggled out and had to, slide across the floor because his hands and feet were bound. And, each of these lost souls have their own little backstory. That's, how they got there and why they are stuck in this purgatory. So that was the idea for him. But then when we landed on getting Troy James, or even just we decided we should go for a contortionist, and we figured out that may actually be possible for us. We said, well, they don't have to be tied up anymore. We can, the story we came up with was maybe, all of his arms and legs were broken. So that's why he can move so differently. So, the blocking, I guess, if you will, of he comes up from under the bed, crawls along the floor, and then gets up onto the bed. That was there from script stage. So that's 100% Keith's twisted mind. And then when we landed on Troy, you can get from point A to point B in ways that I have never seen before. Yeah. So we worked very closely with Troy because it's not like there's it's not like I could get down and say, okay, Troy, do it like this. That's not going to get us anywhere. Or Troy, how can you move from here to there? What are your different ways of, standing up from the ground? And he can do it 100 different ways. Working with him was an incredible experience because you never know what to expect. It's a whole new piece of clay to mold, because he's so incredibly unique.
What's the reaction when you're watching Troy do this stuff? Like, Constantine is tied up on this bed. The suffocating ghost clearly has her in his sights. He does what he does, which is just amazing. I mean, what's the reaction when you're watching him, kind of like you saying, okay, Troy, show us what you got? And when he's showing you what he's got, like what's the kind of, how do you all kind of react to this thing? Because I was just like, this is just crazy.
Yeah, well, I think everyone on set was behind the monitor that day. Everyone had to see Troy do his thing.
I think sorry, Justin, not to cut you up. I think a few people came in just knowing that he was coming in to do this and wanted to watch.
Yeah. And I think one of the makeup artists who was there just for the day, she came in, not knowing what to expect. She came around the corner and we had already cut. So she comes in and then Troy leaves set, but instead of just standing up and walking out, he came out backwards and upside down. She screamed so loud when he came around the corner because she didn't know it was happening. So yeah, there was a lot of fun like that on set. But as you say, when he is, on top and upside down of Constantina, his awareness is incredible. Like Constantine, he would, ask Constantine, "Are you okay? I don't want to bump you here." And she's like, "I can't even feel you up there," because somehow he managed to know where every limb is at any time, and he's not even bumping her or anything. So it was wild to watch. And Constantina, I think, was terrified and having a great time all at the same time. And she and Troy got along really well, which is helpful.
Final question here for both of you. So you have Anything for Jackson is in the can, it's released, and the reaction has been so overwhelmingly positive and deservedly so. Now you have this taste of horror. What's next in regards to this genre? Is it back to doing horror filmmaking again? Is it that Anything for Jackson, you got that in your craving for this horror movie has been fulfilled, or are we going to expect some more? Because I'm really hoping that you two really do some more. Keith, you can go ahead and answer that first.
Definitely more. Again, because I've loved horror forever, I have so many ideas. And luckily with the success, it's been overwhelming for us. But it's opened a lot of doors that we didn't have open to us before. And luckily those people also really love horror and really liked Anything for Jackson and have been asking us for more. And luckily we have lots more. So that's definitely the way we're headed.
Justin?
Yeah, it took us 7 years to make this one. I guess because you when you show up with a monkey movie under your belt, they don't say, "Oh, well, you would be perfect for us to give you thousands and thousands of dollars to make a horror movie." But now that we have one, people are the phone's getting answered more often. So hopefully it does not take another 7 years. As Keith said, we have more scripts and ideas than we'll have time to make. So. Let's just looking forward to getting started on the next one and seeing where that takes us.
So for everyone listening, Anything for Jackson out now on Shudder. It's so great here in Australia. Shudder just released this year, which is perfect timing considering everything that's happening in the world. And so many great movies on there, and I think Anything for Jackson is one of the best ones, if not the best one I've seen on that platform this year. And congratulations to you, Justin, and to you, Keith. And again, thank you for your time, and I cannot wait to see what you guys do next, because I just absolutely love this film. I love what you guys did, and I can't wait to see what is next from both of you.
Well, thanks so much for the kind words. This has been a lot of fun. Really appreciate it.